Hi everybody, welcome to the Knitty Witch Podcast, episode 6. I am Vanessa Knitty Witch on Instagram and Ravelry. You can find my shop at Knitty Witch Shop on Etsy or at knittywitch.com, and you can email me at knittywitchshop@gmail.com. You can also hop on my Instagram and there is an email button and you can email me that way as well. I come to you from Dover, Delaware, where I live with my fiance Brandon and our combined children and my dog Zeus. And I am retired Air Force. I was an air traffic controller for 14 years and am now retired. So thank you to everyone who's here for the first time and to everyone who is coming back and has subscribed and who is enjoying watching. I really appreciate everyone that's been supportive of me this entire journey. So this is a podcast about knitting and crafty things, so let's get into that. I do not have any FOs this week as I've been working busily on a couple projects. I will get into whips because that is all that I have are whips for you. So for my first whip, I was participating in the Spooky Socks Make Along by Moonglow Yarn Co., Knitty Natty, and Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady. I did not finish. Here are my sock, because I only finished one. I mean, I didn't even finish one. I made it halfway or somewhat halfway because I haven't even done the cuff and there is no heel in here. So I have a sock tube and that is okay. I will finish them. I've been knitting on them a little bit at a time. This is a vanilla sock pattern that I designed myself. I design all of my sock patterns using math, and I don't really write it down what I do. I just kind of use my gauge and calculate my stitches that way. So for this sock, I did cast on 60 stitches around. So this is a 60 stitch sock. And I will put in an afterthought heel right here where I have marked. So that is my progress on my spooky sock. I'm sorry, it's just cracking me up that it's one sock, my spooky sock, and it is living in my Hohi bag that I love, this little box bag. I think it is perfect. It has so much room in there. And I guess I should say I'm using yarn from Haverland. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's Havir land, so Haverland. And this is an unnamed colorway. I bought this at Fiber Space in Alexandria, Virginia, and it was in a bin and it did not have a band or a tag to go with it. So I'm using to knit these Chaigu size 0, 24 inch to magic loop the heel and the toe. And I am knitting them on Chaigu 0 size 0 9-inch circulars. So that's how I knit my socks. I love the 9-inch circulars. They're my absolute favorite. You just knit around and around and around, and it's so quick, and I love it. It's the best way. I get a little frustrated if I try to magic loop a sock and just having to like mess with the needles and move them back and forth drives me absolutely insane. So the 9-inch circulars are just the way to go for me. So for my next whip, this is a good one. So my next whip is, I've been working on this for 3 weeks now, maybe a little longer, and that is my Shawlography. And my Shawlography is being punished, and it is living in the Ziploc bag. And I say it's being punished. It actually didn't do anything wrong. I had no problems completing the pattern whatsoever. So I will take this out and show you. So here I am. Well, I guess before I show you where I'm at, I should say that Shawlography was a mystery knit along with Stephen West. And it was knit in 4 parts, and every part was called a clue. And the clues came out every Friday. So every Friday a week spaced out, you would get a clue. Clue 1 week, clue 2 the next week, 3 and 4. And you didn't know what you were knitting. It was a mystery. And I did a pretty good job of staying off of Instagram and keeping it a mystery. I did towards the end, like I made it to clue 2. I did see the rest of it at that point. So here I am. So here is the shawl. And I am knitting this out, I should say I was knitting this out of Dream in Color yarn, their merino cashmere blend. Super soft in this color right here, this, a blue, a purple, and a hot pink. So those were my 5 colors. And this is how it was starting to look. So clue 1, go like this. So this was clue 1 right here. Clue 1 was these wedges up to these I-cord loops. And clue 2 goes on after that. So I only made it to clue 2. So this is clue 2. This part here, and then the triangles, the bobbles, and the striping. So I will say that I was really excited with this knit when we first started it. I really, really like this wedge portion here with the I-cord loops. I think the way that the colors played together in between the wedges here and the way that they're striped was absolutely stunning. I loved every moment of knitting clue 1. Then we kind of got to clue 2, and there's a lot going on. For me, I will say that this was so much fun to knit with so many different techniques. There are these wedges. They're called wedges, and they were made by literally dropping stitches, unraveling your stitches. Absolutely incredible technique. The techniques that Stephen West come up with are absolutely brilliant. Should say this is a knit along with Stephen West. I never mentioned that. Stephen West is the designer. And the techniques are so much fun, and it was so much fun to learn something new and to try something different that I hadn't tried before. But as far as my color choices go, I'm not liking the way my colors are playing together. I don't think that this color here, this pink, I don't feel like this speckled pink was enough contrast to, I don't know, to kind of keep up with the pattern. I think that I just got lost, as in, like, I didn't get lost. He just lost me after clue 1. I made it this far, and I actually still do really like up to the bobbles even, actually, but seeing this striping portion and then the way that it ends is there is a striped border. There's actually a brioche section, and I was gonna opt out of the brioche section anyway because I have never seen brioche that I personally like. It's not that the technique scares me, I just don't like the look of brioche, and that is my own personal thing. There's nothing wrong with it. So I was gonna opt out of the brioche section, and I was gonna do the eyelets. But after seeing the striped border, it's just not something that I personally am going to wear in these colors. Had I knit it in a rainbow, I probably would be feeling a lot differently. But with my colors, I'm just not in love. And I feel like it looks like something out of a Dr. Seuss book, and it reminds me of Whoville. And that's fine, but I just know me, and I know that I'm not going to wear it. I have spoken before about how I don't really wear shawls anyway because I don't have anywhere to wear them. I work in a salon, which is why I'm wearing this. This is not knitted. This is just a cheap clearance sweater that I got. I was working earlier today, and I'm still dressed in my work clothes, but I just don't have anywhere to wear shawls to. So they don't get as much use as they should, and I'm not loving where this is going, and I just don't see the point of, I don't want to say wasting my time, because it's not wasting my time. I just don't see the point of knitting on something that doesn't bring you joy and make you happy, because knitting should bring you joy and knitting should make you happy. And if you're unhappy knitting something, then you shouldn't be making it. And you know, I'm not talking about when we knit gifts for people and we wish we were knitting something for ourselves, because I get that happens to all of us. But I just mean to put so much time and effort into something and then not love the finished product. I just didn't want to go any further. And I put so much yarn into this, and if you look at the back, there is a lot of ends to weave in. And that's a lot of little clippings of yarn that we had to cut the yarn frequently. So I didn't want to lose any more yarn into the shawl not liking it. I wanted to have enough yarn left over of each of the colors that maybe I could take this color out. This is the speckle pink, and maybe put like a green in or something different that might be a little bit better, or who knows, I might even just use them for 5 totally different projects. But they're just not going, I'm not going to put any more yarn into Shawlography for me. So instead of Shawlography, put that away. So instead of Shawlography, I went ahead and did something that made me happy, which was cast on a sweater. I really am trying to knit more sweaters. I have a few sweaters quantities worth of yarn in my stash, and I really need to get through it. So I cast on the Bay Heaven Cardigan by Kimberly McAlindin, which, if you remember and watched my previous podcast, my very first podcast, episode 1, I was wearing a blue sweater, and that is the Bay Heaven Cardigan. And this time around, it is living in this gorgeous bag by Shayla of Black Pearl Magic. It is one of her vinyl pouch bags, and it has all these holographic stars on it and a rainbow zipper that is so beautiful. So here we are. Well, I feel like every time I podcast, I'm in the middle of a row. I like to live on the edge, and I stop in the middle of a row all the time. I actually prefer to stop in the middle of a row, because when I'm using my pattern in Knit Companion, if I'm in the middle of a row, I know that that's where I left off. So if my pattern says I'm on row 4, I know I'm on row 4 because I'm in the middle of row 4. But sometimes when you complete a row, you forget to hit that row counter, and you go back to your pattern and you're not even sure what row you're on because you didn't hit the counter. I find that that just doesn't happen if I just keep myself in the middle of a row. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I like to stop in the middle of a row. So I am at the beginning bottom border, which is knit out of this pattern, knit using a pattern. It's not ribbing, it's something different. I don't know what the actual pattern is called, but it's not the regular like 1x1 rib. I am knitting this out of Into the World. I don't have the information for what it is or what the colorway name is yet because I don't have the ball bands for this handy. So this yarn is balled up because it came from a sweater that I was knitting. I was knitting the Pomme de Pin by Amy Christophers, and things did not go as planned. I ended up frogging the sweater. So that's why I am like recycling this yarn into another project. I love this yarn. This yarn is so beautiful. And there's very few patterns that look good with this yarn. And I'm saying that because it's so beautiful that if you knit something that has too much of a pattern, then you lose the pattern that the yarn creates with the dye. So all that to say, it looks really good with stockinette. So the Bayhaven cardigan, with the exception of the collar and the bottom and the cuffs, it's stockinette. So it will really show off the beauty of the dye job in this yarn. And I'm excited about this. I'm excited to get this yarn into a sweater. I bought this at Maryland Sheep and Wool years ago, so long, and it's time that it gets knit into a sweater finally. So I am knitting this on size 3 Chagu needles, 40-inch, and size 5 Chagu 40-inch circular, fixed circular needles. Fixed circular because I'm done with my interchangeables. I think I spoke about this on my vlog. It was, I just have had such bad luck with interchangeable needles coming undone in the middle of my rows. And we're not talking about like coming undone and me losing a stitch or two. We're talking about me losing an entire row of stitches. So I just have sort of like a little bit of distrust for interchangeable needles. So I'm using fixed circular needles, and I have such peace of mind knowing that these needles are not going to unscrew, and it's great. I love the peace of mind that I'm getting. So that is going to be a Bayhaven cardigan by Kimberly McAlindin. So let me think. That was my whips. I have nothing else. The Shawlography has taken me weeks to do, and it was a lot of knitting. So unfortunately, that's where most of my time went. I was hoping to have it done in the next like 2 weeks, but like I said, I'm just not going to put any more time into it. So in the next 2 weeks, hopefully I'll have a little bit more going on the sweater. And maybe the spooky socks might be done. I'm not sure. Thank you so much to everyone who watched Vlogtober and who commented and enjoyed it and encouraged me and cheered me on. It was so much fun to share everything with you guys and give you a little glimpse into my life. If you didn't notice, I do have a lot of downtime where I do have time to knit. So a lot of the time is spent with me in a recliner. But that's because I work part-time now. I am retired. I don't work full-time. So I do find myself catching what time I have to sit in my recliner and to knit. And I'm really enjoying doing that. And I enjoyed sharing that with you guys. I do not have any acquisitions this month, I guess I should say, because of Rhinebeck. All of my acquisitions were Rhinebeck purchases. I will say, I showed you for my Rhinebeck purchases that I bought this spindle, and it is called Temple Teak because it is wood used. Okay, let me try that again. They used wood that they harvested from a Buddhist temple in India that was downed by an earthquake. I find that to be absolutely incredible that I have a piece of history here. The wood is gorgeous, but it's not the wood that's important. It's where it came from. Like, to me, knowing that this came from India, and specifically a Buddhist temple, when I am kind of a spiritual person, and that does mean a lot to me, that that's where this came from. So I have been spinning with this like couple minutes every few days. So this is a braid of wild hair fibers, and no rabbits were harmed in the making of this fiber. And it's this gorgeous like black and rainbow color that I'm absolutely in love with. So I have been just kind of making it a point to spin a little bit every so often, because every time I stop spinning, I get worse. The more I do it, the more consistent my yarn is. And every time I start spinning again, like if I were to use my spinning wheel and start spinning with the same fiber that's like on my spinning wheel, my spinning will be different. It'll be uneven, and it takes me a little bit to get back in the groove and get back on track and have my spinning be uniform again. So if you don't spin, I highly suggest you do. I can just sit here like forever and sit here and draft and spin. It is so relaxing. And if spinning is something that you haven't done yet and you're thinking about doing, I highly suggest that you get a drop spindle and you start spinning with me. I will teach you to spin. Get in contact with me. I would love to make a spinner out of everyone. Don't be discouraged. You can do it. It takes practice, but it's just like with knitting. It's just when you started knitting and you didn't know what you were doing, your stitches weren't even, you were dropping stitches, that all happens in the learning process. And there's gonna be a learning process with the spindle, but it is achievable and it is doable and it's so much fun. And then once you learn and master drafting on a spindle, it makes spinning on a wheel so much easier to learn. I remember my friend taught me to use the spinning wheel and I could not draft to save my life. It wasn't until I figured out how to essentially spin. The first method that I learned to spin with is called the park and draft method. And that is a method where you spin your spindle. You spin your spindle, you stop it between your legs or your knees, and you pinch and you draft at the same time. And the whole time your spindle is parked between your knees. And then you give it a spin again and you park it between your knees and you draft a little bit more. And then eventually you won't need to park it anymore and you can just spin while it's spinning in the air. You'll get there, I promise. My biggest piece of advice when spinning is to save your yarn. Save the first ugly, bumpy, uneven, sloughy art yarn that you first create. Save it forever, because you're gonna look back on it and you're gonna see how far you've come. And every now and then I look back on mine and I see how far I've come, and I share that with other people. Look where I was and look where I'm at now. So spinning can be so much fun when it does take a long time on a spindle to spin, but don't worry about the finished product. Worry about the process and what you're learning. Don't think that you're gonna spin this whole braid on your spindle and have yarn. that can be done, but it's going to be a little bit before you get there. Just enjoy the process. I will share with you how I learned to spin. So I was at the Pennsylvania Renaissance Festival years and years and years ago. We're talking like 2009, maybe 2010, something like that. And everyone is dressed in traditional, Renaissance festival garb. And I see this lady, and she's sitting in a chair and she's spinning on a spindle. And I went up to her and I said, "Oh my God, you're spinning. I've always wanted to learn that. I've never seen anyone do it in person." And she asked me, she said, "Well, are you going anywhere?" And I said no, because I was at the festival for the day. And she pulled up a chair for me and she taught me how to spin. She gave me her phone number. We met up later on after the Renaissance Festival and became friends. And that friendship has lasted years. She's my friend Colleen. She lives a little bit further up in Pennsylvania than me. It's not that far of a drive. It's like an hour. And we got together and she taught me to knit socks, and she taught me to design my own socks, and she taught me to spin, and she taught me to use a wheel. And fiber friends are just absolutely amazing. And what she was to me is what I want to be to everyone else. She was that anchor for me into the knitting world. And I just try to pass on the knowledge and share the wealth. Someone taught me, and I just want to teach it to someone else and have this art thrive and stay alive. Hey, that rhymed. So this is, I didn't mention this spindle is from Bosworth Spindles. So that was from Rhinebeck. I do have a collection of spindles that I could probably show you at another time. They're scattered, but I find myself collecting spindles frequently because they're just little works of art, and I think they're great and I love them. So for everything else, I have nothing else knitting related. Well, not that I have nothing else knitting related. I don't have any more knitting to show you, and I don't have any more acquisitions, but I can share something with you. And that's a little bit of reading. So a book that I read not too long ago that I absolutely fell in love with is called Casting Spells by Barbara Bretton. And now these books, they don't look like this anymore. I actually have the sequel, and they kind of look like that now. That's the cover. And it's a story about a lady who owns a yarn shop. She doesn't know if she has magical powers or not. There's magic, there's wizards, and maybe not wizards, but there's definitely magic and sorcery. There's love. There's all sorts of fun stuff packed into this book, and of course lots of yarn, which is why I love this so much. Like, they go into the yarn store so frequently, and you really relate to everything going on. And if you've been in a local yarn store and you feel that vibe, it kind of draws you in and makes you feel like you're there. So I highly recommend this book, Casting Spells. It was a fun read. It's not the most in-depth plot, but it is definitely entertaining, and it is a fast read. So just something to do. Thank you everyone so much for spending your time with me, for watching, and for just being there. I appreciate each and every one of you. So I'm going to say, I hope you have an amazing day. Whatever it is that you're doing, do it with love, do it with happiness. Be beautiful, be you, and make magic wherever you go. Have a good time, guys.